embarrassing. I always have to give that little deal. Let me pray for us, and then we'll get ready to get started. Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for this opportunity together and talk about this opportunity that's before us. And I always pray for your wisdom and your direction and vision as we move forward into this mission opportunity. Thank you for your goodness in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn a little bit where you can see Ken. We've got it on a big monitor on the other side of us, so I can watch there. Ken's got some charts that he's going to show here, and then we've got a PowerPoint, and I'll share that on the screen whenever the time comes for that.
This is a little better organized than it's going to look like right at the beginning. But anyway, let me show you this first. This is a map overview of the Port Arthur area. And so starting right at this location, I'm backwards up here, that is Memorial Baptist Church, the target church. And I want you to look and see all those roads in there are blocks and blocks and blocks of houses. This is just a portion of Port Arthur. Obviously, you can pull this up on your devices as well. But I want to show you this. Right up here at the very top, there is Trinity Baptist Church. Then over here is Memorial Baptist Church. And then all the way down at the bottom, down on the by the Intercoastal Waterway, is Gateway Baptist Church. Gateway Baptist Church actually looks like it's closed and has not reopened after hurricanes. There is one other church in this area, and that is right in here, El Buen Pastor, which is a Hispanic Baptist church. So all of these houses in this area. So look at this map. Think about the density of homes. Now I'm going to show you on a different map. I want to highlight just this portion right here. Okay, so on the next map, it's just this area. So here is this entire map of the Port Arthur, the lower Port Arthur area. But again, I want to highlight just that area right around the church. Now on this one, you can see the red dots where Memorial Baptist Church is, the one by that Cloverleaf Drive. That's where Highway 287 crosses Highway 73 in Port Arthur, crossing over that intersection into the lower part of Port Arthur. And you can see the red dot of Memorial Baptist Church, of El Buen Pastor, Gateway down at the bottom, and then up at the top, you can see Trinity Baptist. If you'll look at just that area that has the ink around it, that portion right there has 428 residences in it. So if you take that and extrapolate it out to all of Port Arthur and look and see how many Baptist churches are in that area, you think about the number of residences in all of that area. And right now, it looks like there's two English-speaking churches and one Hispanic-speaking church. Okay, the other thing is that the pastor pointed out to us that this little corridor, if I can get my going the right direction, this little corridor right here has, I think, a higher population of African American. All of the rest of this, he said, was mostly Hispanic. Okay, so let's go to the PowerPoint and we will go from there. And hopefully it's going to come up here. I might need to.
There we go. There we go.
All right. So this is Pastor Bill Brazel. The pronunciation is Brazel, and this is his invitation for groups to come and help.
Brother, we're not seeing anything over here.
You're not seeing that?
Mm-hmm. Black screen.
Okay.
I'm glad you said that.
I'm glad you said that because okay, so we're gonna do this differently.
Okay, you'll have to, I guess, have it on top then.
Yeah, well, come on. Okay, so.
Okay, now we're seeing all the slides.
Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is do it like this. Let me move that out of the way. And can you now see that slide? I may have to do it this way rather than doing the slideshow.
Would
Okay.
would it help if he enlarges that right there?
We can see that fine.
Yeah,
Is
that's fine. We can see that.
Okay,
Okay.
so go to the next screen. So this is his invitation. On behalf of the church family, I want to invite you to come join us in reaching the people of Port Arthur for Christ. Our community has been devastated by 4 hurricanes and 1 refinery explosion in the last 4 years. The people of Port Arthur need to hear the message of Christ and to receive encouragement from people that care. Our church is a multiracial, multi-generational, mission-shaped church that is reaching a community that is mostly Black and Latino. We are in a unique position to connect with our community because of our multiracial approach to ministry. Our goal this summer is to reach many families by ministering to their children. We want to lead families to faith in Christ and to connect them to our church and help them become devoted followers of Christ. Reaching families is essential to the church's revitalization journey. We hope you will hear God's call to join us this summer. He recognizes that they need revitalization, and you'll see that in just a little bit as we kind of go through this. All right, next slide is good. This is, one of the things you do when you go preview a place, you want to look and see what accommodations they have for your group to arrive. And this church has been messed up by the floods that were a result of hurricanes. But portions of the building have already been rebuilt and recovered and are fully functional. And so one of those is the kitchen. There's a great kitchen. I'm only going to show just a tiny bit of it, but there are several refrigerators. There is a full pantry, not of food, but of cooking supplies, the steamer table pans, and other cookware. We a large amount of our own items down there, but anyway, so go ahead to the next one. This is the obviously is the oven, stove, griddle. Go to the next one. The gymnasium has been recovered and fixed by and large. And if you look on that far wall of the gym, it has the downstairs classrooms and the upstairs classrooms. And I think maybe all but one of those, maybe 2 of those, have been converted into sleeping quarters for groups that would come in. And so there's a couple of pictures of the bedrooms. One has obviously a little full-size bed and bunks. The other one shows the full-size beds. The other upstairs, the 2 central rooms are bunk beds that have 1, 2, 3, 4. I think each of them sleep 8 in bunk beds. It may be more than that, but I think that's right. The pastor said, I didn't count. I wish I had taken better notes on the sleeping arrangements, but I think he said they sleep 27. All right, next slide. These are the, always the ladies will ask, what are the bathrooms like? And so this is the ladies' side. And so it's a nice restroom and the showers there, 2 or 3 showers. And then the men's room looks exactly like that. So both the men's and women's restrooms are in good shape. All right, next. Okay, this is the church's condition. In the last 4 years, they've experienced 4 hurricanes, a major oil refinery explosion. The church was flooded twice with 2 feet of water. And it wasn't just the church, it was that entire area. So all of Port Arthur, 2 feet underwater. That's homes, houses. Right next door to the church is an apartment complex. And so they are evidently, now we didn't get deeply into the conversation on that, but according to what the pastor and his wife said, and another man, Tim, that met with us, they have partially repaired some of the downstairs units at that apartment complex, but a lot of the downstairs units in that apartment complex are still non-functional. So the flooding was a real deal. The church currently,
I initially submitted it.
I think we're hearing music in the background on Dietrich's phone, maybe. There we go. We're okay now. The church currently does not have insurance, and it is because they have not yet recovered and repaired all of the parts of their education building. I'll show you a little bit about what that looks like in a little bit. And then in addition to that, their condition includes that the Keystone Pipeline was recently canceled, as you're aware, and the destination of that pipeline was there in Port Arthur. They said, as we were driving through town, they pointed down one road and said the fourth largest refinery in the world is right down there. And so maybe that was a part of the Keystone thing. I'm not exactly sure where it was headed, but I would assume so. The church, the pastor said that the highest attendance they've had in quite some time was Easter Sunday. This was information I was not expecting. This caught me by surprise. And he said on Easter Sunday morning, they had 28. And so I was expecting them to, when you see their facilities, I was expecting it to, that they would have had a broader base of membership to share that load. So currently, not a lot of people attending. Tells you that there's a lot of people in Port Arthur that are going nowhere. He also mentioned that now, I'm guessing it was probably 6 or 7 years ago, that there was a church split, and a lot of their senior adults left the church. And so that's a lot of their financial muscle and leadership. And so they are definitely in the need of major revitalization. I will tell you this, the pastor, in my impression, did not seem depressed. You know, sometimes you run into people who go through things like that and they are clinically depressed, and you can tell it even when they can't. The pastor did not appear to be depressed. He did not sound, even in my opinion, to be discouraged. But sometimes after catastrophic loss like they have gone through in the last 10 years, they are in shock. And it's possible that maybe there is some, PTSD shock from all that they've been through. And, but I mean, seemed to have a good head on his shoulders and a firm will to help the church. And so they are currently, and they intentionally are aiming further in that direction to be multi-ethnic, multi-generational, and their community is mostly Hispanic and Black. Okay. Next slide. No, it went to sleep or something. Okay, this is an aerial view of their church. And so the orange circle is their auditorium. It has been reconfitted and recultured and updated, and it looks good. The yellow circle is the area of church offices and the nursery and maybe a couple of classrooms, and that is very nice, usable, and the kitchen is somewhere back in there. And then the green is their gymnasium. Now, the construction portion of need is the blue circle. That entire wing, because it is connected by the roof line, that area is entirely in need of being recovered. And then I say recovered, restored because of the damage. So from 4 feet down, everything, all the bad stuff has been taken out. All the sheetrock has been removed. All the flooring has been taken out. And there are 5 what they call suites in that wing. And so starting up by the yellow line, it is suite 3. And then the next one down where that dot is The location dot would be suite 4, then 5 and 6, and then the last one at the end of the blue down by the parking lot would be suite 7. So there are 5 suites in that one wing, and until all 5 of those areas have been adequately finished and repaired and would pass some kind of inspection, I guess maybe of an insurance company, then until then, the church cannot get insurance on any part of their facility because it's connected by a roof. So they are in urgent need of getting all the repair work done on that wing. It's a long wing. Joe, you might could help me out here. I'm guessing it's at least 120 feet long, that entire thing, and probably 30 to 35 feet wide. I'm sure one of our guys probably has measurements on it, but I didn't get those from him. But it's a large space. Our church, First Baptist Buoy, likely will take on suite 3, the one that is by the yellow area. It might have a little bit of the sheetrock replaced in it, but by and large, the majority of the sheetrock in there is not up on the lower half of the wall. And there's also, in that one room, is the only part of the building that has wiring needs and plumbing needs. So there's going to maybe have to be a little bit of the slab torn out and repaired there, possibly. Won't know unless they scope the line. And so anyway, there's a lot of work to be done there. All of the electrical outlets are less than 2 feet from the floor. And so all of the electrical outlets in that entire building will have to be redone. And in some places there is conduit, and because it was underwater 2 feet deep, they're going to have to check and make sure that there's no more water existing in any of the conduit as well. All right, go forward then. This is down the hallway of suite 3. So if you look, this is from one room through the hallway. There's classrooms on both sides. There's a restroom, guys and girls restrooms, and then look on down the hallway and you see a room at the far end. So this is just suite, that's okay. This is just suite C. And this is the little restroom that has a little bit of a plumbing problem. And then there's some wiring issues in there as well. You can go to the next slide. This is also in suite C. Brother Mike Henson, our pastor at First Baptist Buoy, is right there on the left holding papers and taking notes. And then the other gentleman he's talking to is Bill Brazel, the pastor of Memorial Baptist Church there in Port Arthur. And all of this that you're looking at right there is in suite C. The pastor did point out that the air conditioning units in that building, although they don't have the covers and stuff on them, he said they are perfectly fine, fully functional. So in these suites, when we start doing the work in those rooms, air conditioning can be turned on so that the construction is not in 100-degree weather or whatever it would be, 80, but 100% humidity. Anyway, that can be done with air conditioning running. You can go to the next one. Okay, the dates that we are looking at, because at our church, we have youth camp, children's camp, vacation Bible school. The possibilities for our church to be involved would be July 18th through 31st. So there's 2 weeks at the end of July that we potentially will go. That means that if churches in our association want to participate along with us, it would probably be one of those 2 weeks that we're looking at. So if you're thinking that you might tie in kind of as an associational thing that we are a part of, then write those dates down. I'll show them at the end of the presentation as well. Go to the next slide. And so this is, I shared this with the ones who went down there, and I just think this is so worth sharing. If you look up 1 Samuel 22, verse 1 and 2, that's where David is running from Saul, and he is out in the wilderness trying to keep from being caught. And I love what it says in verse 2. It says that, now David, you understand, David is in an area that he normally doesn't belong. He's not king yet. He's just the guy who fought some battles and kill the giant. And so people heard stories about him, and they are all pumped about who David is. And in David, they think their battles are going to be won. And so, so they hear that he is in their neighborhood. And this is what verse 2 says. All of those who were in distress and in debt and were discontented gathered to him, and they made up an army of about 420 men. And so I look at that and I think the people who are in distress, the people who are in debt, the people who are discontented are the ones who are vulnerable for leadership. They're looking for hope. They're looking for help. Maybe in debt, they're looking for a handout. And so I love that passage of scripture. I know that after hurricanes and refinery explosions and all like that, there are people in that community that are going to be defined by these three things. And I also know that looking at where the church is, they need an army of men. So this church has got to be, pardon me for saying, retrained to learn how to give hope and help and maybe handout. And because they really do need to grow an army of men. I know the pastor's strategy is to reach children, but they really do need an army of men very badly. So our goal going down there is going to be kind of three-pronged: encourage the church leadership, assist in their building recovery, and then strategically help them reach men and families, and, you know, as the Lord wills us to be involved. All right. So we're looking at my staff will meet, and that's just me and Brother Mike and Dustin, our youth minister. We will meet next week and begin to kind of lay down on a calendar what we think we can do possibly. Now, the things that you're going to see here are my thoughts, not the pastor's thoughts down there. So you don't misconstrue this and think that he's asking us to do these things. He's asking for a few of these, but my mind is kind of filled with a few extra little pieces to that puzzle. So I'm thinking week 1 would be good if we take a group that does construction. If we go and do backyard Bible clubs, and strategically in those areas around the church where those 428 residences are, strategically place backyard Bible clubs and try to make that the beginning part of a conversation of coming in contact with those communities around the church. And through the backyard Bible clubs, come in contact with the mothers and the dads. And then for the children, invite them to a block party at the end of week 1, but also invite the ladies to some special event for the ladies, along with the block party, and the men to attend something kind of like a men's barbecue or men's something kind of gathering. Again, these would not be the end. These would be, all of this would be one step toward the next week. So go to the next week, and my mind is thinking week 2, construction, then do Mission VBS. They call it Kids Adventure Clubs. And so do their kids adventure clubs. By the way, they said that down there, because of so many of the adults working, their evenings are really their only good targets for all of this. So I'm thinking Vacation Bible School, we would be doing the concrete and cranes Lifeway material, because nobody did it last year because it's shut down, and we have the material and the stuff. So we're planning on doing that at our church this year. So we would likely do the concrete and cranes, and then have a sports camp for the youth that second week in the evening as well. So children have Bible school, youth have sports camp, and then have an adult gathering as well on a nightly basis. Now, I've done the only times that I have ever seen this work and work well has been in the Navajo or in Indian reservations and in Mexico. And in those areas, we've always had great success with adult classes. So doing it in an American culture, I don't know how well that will work. So, but I'm willing to try it out. Then, as I mentioned that to Brother Mike, our pastor, oh, By the way, I do know how to spell plumbing. I was in a hurry, sorry. But as I was mentioning this to Brother Mike, I was thinking like a men's class where they could make like birdhouses or something, which we've done in the past in those other settings. And Brother Mike said, he said, what about doing some classes for them that they would really, and he suggested like a class on wiring. If they're redoing their houses, maybe have an electrician who could give some instruction about wiring 220 and 110 and doing a box or something like that. And then, so from that, I began thinking those, maybe a class on investing, a class on some of the construction skills, even a class on general health or a ladies' Bible study class with craft. So the first week, if we could do outreach to the children through backyard Bible clubs, get some of the men and women to come to some special event ministry at the end of the first week, pull them into the second week and have something that they would come to, then maybe the church would have an opportunity to connect to, in my opinion, they need men. They need an army of men. So connect them. Anyway, so now I've said that in every different direction. You understand what I'm saying. So go to the date then, the last slide. So again, these are the dates that we're looking at. I think I've gone through everything. Any questions or any thoughts?
Yeah, I've got a question. On that first week, you mentioned backyard Bible clubs. Would those be held in the homes of existing involved members, or are there public spaces, parks, and those kind of things where those would be held?
Okay. I asked again, as a music minister, I deal with pastors from a different direction and angle than you as pastors do. So I'm not exactly sure how to fully answer what you're asking. My goal would be, because as a youth minister years ago, that's what I did. I would put them in homes of church members. So I asked the pastor and I drew the area around their church, all of those communities, much bigger than the little area that I showed you. And I asked him, I said, do y'all have church members, families and homes in these areas where we could place backyard Bible clubs? And he said, well, I'm thinking we might have 3 locations, but none of them are on that map. And so then he said, and then from what he said, what I picked up on, he was thinking that he and his wife would host one of them. Another guy that was there in the room, the Tim guy, they were thinking they would ask him to host one of them. And then maybe they would know one other. But it didn't sound like, and Joe can probably verify this, it didn't sound like any of them were anywhere in the neighborhood around the church, which tells me that the first big goal is to get some host homes in that area. I don't know if that needs to be members of some other church that live, that go to church in some other area, that they wouldn't mind hosting it on behalf of this church. I don't know how to go about that, but for them to do a children's event at their church that draws 40 or 60 children. No, he actually said, I think one of them, they had 200 come to a few years ago. That would have been pre-COVID. But for them to have the children come for a one-night event, because all that was a block party, then they're not really establishing relationships. And I feel like we need to do what we can, if we can, to try to help them to build relationships if we can. And I think strategically, we need to try to find homes in that community. Now, he said he pointed out a school within that range of their church that I showed you on the map. There is a school that is really open to them being involved. And, but school is not going to be going on in the summer. And so as big an avenue as that is for them during the school year, it's not, I don't see that as any benefit for the Backyard Bible Clubs. And by Backyard Bible Clubs, I'm thinking like a traditional 4-day Bible club material, very brief. It's, usually you're thinking maybe an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes at somebody's house. And the kids not even go inside the house, generally in a yard. So that's kind of what I have in mind. But, if we have different churches go on different weeks doing different things, they can do that, make that look a different way. But if we could have, the pastor was thinking maybe we could do 3. I'm thinking, if we could do more groups go, we might could do 6 or 8 and touch that area a little bit more. But if through handing out flyers for the Bible clubs and door knocking, and then through those children who attend those things, you can send flyers home with them for the parents to come to the end of the week block party thing. Then that really opens up an avenue to promote all of the next week as well. So anyway, that's where my mind goes. But again, our staff hasn't met yet to make any commitments yet. We'll do that Monday.
Yeah, I was just curious. I know the 2 years that we took groups to Wisconsin, we did kind of a combination. We did, some groups met in church facilities. I don't know that we had any that met in homes, but some found public gathering places, playgrounds, parks, those kind of things, and held outdoor events like that. And that way they, could kind of even draw in some kids who were just there. Our
hope would be to find a host home where the parent at least knows a few people in their community, and they help by saying, that they're thought of well, that they're seen in their community as trustworthy, so that other parents wouldn't mind their kids coming. And the pastor did say that, we wouldn't want them in the backyard. We generally would want these done in the front yard, so they can be seen. And I'm thinking, in the prep work, we would not only send flyers down there ahead of time for all of the different locations and all, but we would also give them signs to go up in their yards. Good. So they could be seen in the neighborhood as people drive around. Yeah. But now, making connection to those homes, I'm not exactly sure what we would do for that yet, but.
Right. My other question, you mentioned the ladies' tea fellowship. Is that going to be sort of culturally accessible? Is that something that's going to draw folks from a Latino culture or African American background? Is that the? And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just curious. Or is there something that would be maybe more culturally attractive to folks, from a multicultural perspective? Is a tea fellowship too kind of Anglo-centric? I guess is what I'm asking.
I have no knowledge of a ladies' tea fellowship and no plans to do anything like that. And so when I was typing that up, I thought, I know what a men's barbecue does to guys. Yeah. And so I thought, and we need something for the ladies. I don't even know what ladies do. And so I just typed that up. So it means nothing. That could be anything it needs to be.
Okay, good. And I think a barbecue cuts across cultures. I think it doesn't matter, race, ethnicity. If you're cooking meat, guys are gonna show up.
And I will say this, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, and I could, I yield completely to other people's opinions. But in my opinion, when I look at his church and I meet and I hear what their condition is right now, my heart screams they need men. So my focus on the deal on all of that is the men need something special just for men, in my opinion. And so for sure. I don't care what we do for the ladies, but I think that the men need something that is only men centric. Yeah. I think that would help this church to connect men. By the way, when our church forms a team and we are training to go do this, I will tell them, and Brother Mike will too, the team that we take down there can bond with the church members all we want to, but we need to intentionally not bond with the people of the community. We need to facilitate the church members bonding, and they may not know how to do that, but we're going to have to help them, and we're going to have to get out of the way and bond those members to the people in the community. We don't want to come home with them wanting to be around us. We need them to be wanting to be around the people of that church. So that's
good.
Even with this ladies thing, the men's thing, the children's stuff, we want to do everything we can to highlight and elevate the pastor, his key leaders, the people that they would connect to in that church.
Yeah. Let me also just affirm, I love the idea of that second week doing those evening sort of focused meetings on, whether it be finances, budgeting, those kind of things. And then maybe one on construction, how to just do simple construction work. I thought about with the health, if you have somebody who is certified to teach CPR, you could do like a CPR certification class. That might be valuable.
I'm writing it down. Any other question? Anybody else have? Joe, add to it. You were there.
Hey, brother, my concerns right now are, if we do the backyard Bible club, how well we're going to canvass the neighborhood prior, get the information out with all of this. Because I think if we don't plan for that, we're going to end up being there and just not have as much involvement as we could have had. It may even be worth maybe putting a team. That's what they do the week prior to those 2 weeks, is just get out, pray for communities, pass out flyers. I'm not sure the church there, Memorial Church, can actually really accomplish that before we get there.
You're right. You're exactly right.
So is the community around the church, as far as economically, is it a lower income area? Is it middle income? What is your impression?
Go ahead, Joe.
It's a lower income community. I think that's part of the concern with that church and where it's at. And with all that's gone on, they've seen a lot of those that had income move out. If they live there, I don't know. I didn't see any areas that I thought would kind of even be middle income.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. I've driven through parts of Port Arthur that were the little cracker box houses, and this was not that. These were not the little bitty shacks that are, that have. I was expecting it to be worse than what we saw. Now, when we drove down into Old Town Port Arthur, the old downtown area, they said pretty much, the pastor and his wife said that pretty much all of old downtown Port Arthur, where all the large buildings are, the multi-story office buildings, said basically that whole area has been vacated. There are only city offices are operational down there, it looked like. And other than the city offices, I would say maybe we drove 10 or 15 city blocks, and maybe 2 or 3 businesses were open in all that area, and tall buildings and all. So a little bit of that's probably hurricane, but after nobody rebuilt and people didn't come back in the area, then the businesses closed. So there are parts of Port Arthur that are in really awful shape, but the parts out by the church, we drove through community after community, and it looked like people are mowing their yards and then redoing their flower beds and cars parked. And so there's opportunity, for this church. It's not I wouldn't say it's a totally devastated area like I was expecting. I don't know how they rebuilt all their homes, after the floods, unless, I don't know. I mean, I guess it didn't look to me like any homes were built up, above the flood. It looked like everything probably flooded about equally. Oh, anyway, I don't know. But we drove through a few neighborhoods, but we didn't dwell in those neighborhoods. And so I can't tell you a whole lot about them.
There is a major apartment complex just behind the church. Now, did he say much about that apartment complex?
If you'll remember, they said that people were still living in the upstairs parts of it. Downstairs, they were still rebuilding a few of the units. But they said, I got the impression that in times past, they had had full knowledge of how things were over at the apartment complex. But after this, whatever their situation is now with the most recent damage and like that, they've kind of been focused internally and they haven't kept up with exactly the condition over there. That's the impression I got, because they knew a lot about it and they have rented out their common meeting space over there a few times they referred to, but then they talked like that now they're not exactly sure the condition of things. So there's been a period of time they haven't connected over there. And I guess they haven't really needed to. With as few people as they have attending their church, they haven't been able to reach out the way they would want to, I guess.
So do you know if they have like a summer feeding program at the elementary school or anything like that?
They mentioned that. I don't remember the details, but there is, not the church. There is,
about the school.
did they say Salvation Army or Red Cross? There is a group that does that. Maybe Salvation Army does it. Do you remember, Joe, what they said?
No, sir, I don't recall.
Okay. They said something about that. There is some group. I didn't think about that, David, but that's a great connection.
Because they would be connecting with families and then you could possibly collaborate with them if they pick up food or whatever,
That's awesome. And that's the same group that they said is wide open to their participation and their involvement.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
So on the building itself, and I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but what would happen to the building if the church failed?
I do not know the answer to that.
Would it, because it could revert to an association, let's say. If so, then there could be another church relaunched in that location. Like if you're going to invest in those buildings, you'd sort of want to know what would happen with those facilities, say in the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. Well, our pastor, Brother Mike, was pretty overt in mentioning this to Brother Bill, and Brother Bill gave no pushback, and he seemed to affirm the same idea that they need to find a Hispanic pastor and began to do a work like that, multi-ethnic. By the way, I forgot to mention this earlier, but Brother Bill said that in their backyard Bible clubs and VBS, if we have any Spanish-speaking teachers that can go down there, then we could give some VBS and Becker Bible Club, have them Spanish classes. And that would be a good thing for them to do that. But the pastor seemed to be, already thinking down the lines that this one day might need to convert over to a Spanish-speaking church. And he gave no pushback along those lines that I heard. So Brother Mike was, it's one of those things that when our pastor said that, I was a little uncomfortable about, I don't know how this is going to sound. The other pastor was already there. So did you hear that differently, Joe, or do you recall, were you in there?
Sir, that's exactly how I heard it. He's very open, probably had even been considering it already.
Yeah.
That they were going to need to, if they're going to reach that community, they're going to need to reach them in their language.
Now, that's not exactly the question you asked, David. You said, what if it fails?
It's like the property, because
the church is in Gulf Coast Association, and it is Jim Turnbow is the director of missions. I haven't spoken with him. I called and left a message on his phone. I wanted to talk to him about the church, and I haven't heard back from him. So anyway, so I don't know what they would do. I have no idea. I do believe, I don't really know because we never had this part of the conversation, but they don't show up as an SBTC church. So I'm assuming that they are a BGCT affiliated, uniquely BGCT affiliated church, although the way we found out about this was through the SBTC publication. And that turns out that someone approached Brother Bill and said, you know, we could put an ad for free in the Texan to invite people to come help your church if you want to. So he agreed to that. So, but I don't think that they're affiliated with SBTC as far as I can tell.
Do they have any working partnership with the Hispanic church that's down the road?
I would assume not, but I don't know that.
Okay.
But the other church, by the way, their name is Iglesia Bautista El Buen Pastor. So it is Baptist. Now, whether it's affiliated with Southern Baptist, no, actually, I think it is Southern Baptist because it appears on the Gulf Coast Association website. So it is a Southern Baptist fellowship.
Okay. Because it might be trying to build some rapport with that congregation might be helpful as well.
Yeah.
Where they could partner together.
Yeah,
Of course, I didn't see the facilities the Hispanic church has, but it looks like Memorial has ample space. I mean,
yeah, if they need to flip-flop.
Either that or make, if you redid that whole education wing, you could open up some of that space to the Hispanic congregation or something like that.
Okay, regarding that space, there's another little dynamic there for you. Because it's incomplete, the work is incomplete, they can't get insurance.
Right.
Once it's complete, they can get insurance, but the insurance will be about $20,000 a year. So the pastor said, so we have two things that have to happen before we can get insurance. We have to get it finished and we have to come up with $20,000. Now, if they have a catastrophic fire or another hurricane that blows the roof off, which could happen, or anything else like that, then they are uninsured. And now that begs the question, back when the initial damage was done, were you insured then? What did you do with that insurance money? Well, I don't know those questions. I know all those are valid questions. I know another valid question is, you tell me, Pastor, that y'all had a split 7 years ago or whatever it was. It's valid to want to know what led up to that. So if anything we do to help you, are you tending to recur and go down that road of causing a split again? I don't know anything about that. I will tell you that they are in need. And I think if I were in their shoes, they need help to revitalize the church. They can't do it on their own, but with help, they probably can. My guess is, I guess you'd have to step back and look at it with a different vision than I have right now, because, I've only had one trip down there, and I was having to babysit Joe half the time. So I kind of took my attention away from the important stuff. But anyway, so there you go. I like the head shake, Joe. Anyway, if I were in their shoes, I would look ahead and think, okay, what do we look like 3 years from now, 5 years from now? When are we healthy and stable and happy? What does it take to get there? And from my perspective, I can't even look and see that. I can tell you that I'm confident that at the end of this year, if we could pull off at least what I'm thinking that our church might want to help with, then they are way better off than they are right now at this moment, way better off. But I think that it might take 2 or 3 years of a partnership like our church or this association or others. I think it might take a 2 or 3 year investment, not so much on the building, not so much on finances, but on connecting to the people in their community. And if we can help them with that, then that will help them revitalize. And they will look way different a couple of years from now than they would now. Anyway, not trying to talk anybody into any part of it, but that is kind of the way I see it. That may be it.
All right.
We lost Dietrich.
And I can also, I'll check in with Jim Turnbow and see from association standpoint. Well, I was wondering what association that was, and when you finally said which one it was, but and kind of get his input on some things and tell him we've got this possibility going on, and how could we? Because I know if somebody were going to come and do something in our association, I'd love to at least know about it, so we could see and how we could be engaged and make sure that we stay connected. And I think the same thing would be true there.
So is First Baptist pretty strong? What's the strongest church in the city of Port Arthur right now?
That's a question for Jim Turnbow. I have no idea.
In terms of that publicity piece, Joe's talking about, say if we partner, say with the strongest church in town, their youth group might could go out in that neighborhood and pass out flyers prior to us arriving, and you could use boots on the ground that are already there.
Nederland and Port Arthur share a city limits line, and I have a friend who pastors a church in Nederland, but in conversations I find out that Brother Bill, the pastor at Memorial, does not know them, and they don't know him, but that's a connection that could be made, and they might be a resource for that as well.
Is Jason Burden at Nederland? Is that right, Jerry Lewis?
I do not know the answer to that question.
He's the president of the BGCT, right? I believe he is, and I thought he was from that area. But maybe we can look that up.
Google is my friend.
Because if Jason was down there, I would assume his church is fairly strong. And, if you got several Baptist churches across 2 state conventions working together, it might be a great thing for them to join us, maybe on that pre-publicity event. I assume he'd have a pretty good youth group, and passing out flyers, something like that wouldn't be a big deal, I wouldn't think.
I agree with you on the pre-trip, and a group going down there and prayer walking and handing out flyers would be a great first step. The pastor was thinking along those lines, and he's the one who told me the house count, the residence count in that area of 428, and that was for the sake of getting flyers in their hands so they could hand them out. So I don't know exactly who he had in mind, if it's just he and his wife or if it's everybody in their church. But
yeah, there's not an African-American church in that region?
Well, there may be, but they weren't. The ones that I showed you, the red dots on the map, were just SBC churches.
Okay.
Actually, not even SBC. They were on Gulf Coast Association churches.
Okay. All right.
And Jason Burden is at First Baptist Nederland.
Okay. Well,
the other thing.
I think we're in principle open to exploring something with you guys. So
the other thing is the pastor Bill Brazel was not inviting us to come down just for those 2 weeks or just for 1 week. He was inviting people to come help this summer. So another church could go down another week and do, their own thing.
Sure.
Whatever that would be. Also, the accommodations, not only are there the beds in the gymnasium, but there are other classrooms where people could bring bed stuffs and make their beds there. There are also plenty of hotels within 5 miles, there's probably 7 or 8 good hotels. And also they have hookups for several RVs. They just don't have any gray water or black water dumps, but they do have electric hookup. I think he said 30 or 50 amp. I don't remember which they said, maybe 50. So they could hook up, 3 or 4 RVs if groups went down.
Golden Triangle Association or Gulf Coast?
Gulf Coast.
Okay, that's not Jim Turnbow. Gulf Coast.
Yeah, this says Gulf.
Beam.
This says Gulf Coast does not include Port Arthur. I think Golden Triangle is where Jim Turnbow is.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
I know both of them, so we should figure out which one's the right association. But whoever the right director of missions is, I will connect.
Mhm.
All right. So what else do we need to? What else do we need to touch on today? Next steps.
I guess when First Baptist Buoy decides exactly when they're going, what they're doing, they can communicate that to the rest of us. And we can, I'm thinking we're more leaning toward partnering rather than trying to do it all on our own. So,
We would love that.
So that's.
We'll fight you for the bed space.
Sounds like a plan. Although our student minister, it was new to him Tuesday, so I don't know what he's thinking, but, he might deploy a group of older teenagers to do that, like that sports camp or something like that. Because we've done those kind of things with our Bible school, so it's not something that's sort of new to us. And so I think it'd be pretty easy as far as doing something we're familiar with. But
we're also doing the same curriculum for Vacation Bible Schools. So we partner with Bethel Baptist Church here. So between the two of us, we might be able to get some of those same volunteers who are familiar with the material and curriculum, who might be interested to be part of that second week if we do a VBS in the evening.
So it sounds like to me that the next step is your staff meeting next week.
Right.
And then we see where we go from there. And when there's a little bit more specifics in place, and then start seeing what other churches are interested in plugging in. And, I want to share the last couple of emails that I sent out. That if a church has one person that wants to go, or two, or if they don't have anybody that wants to go but they want to participate, and maybe we could put together a prayer guide for the week. If we can just engage churches in doing something in mission to be a part of that project, or making a financial contribution towards the expenses of it or whatever, but just trying to engage our churches in the opportunity to look just beyond their own pasture.
Okay, so my takeaway from the meeting is that Dave is going to coordinate the ladies' tea fellowship.
that was my plan too. Sounds great. Good job.
I'll get right on that.
Woo-hoo. Quilting club.
I'm thinking now, I don't know if any of the rest of you have seen any of these, but Dave, I'm thinking that you might do a soda tasting. If you have not seen any of Dave and his family doing tasting of unusual sodas, and his kids are involved in it, they're great videos. I think a bunch of women sitting around drinking ranch dressing soda and black olive soda and other ones that y'all have really
yeah. I'll see if I can get a case of those to haul down there.
All right. Well, it looks like we've got a next step, and we'll just remain in connection. And when we have enough information to send a mail out to our churches, we'll do that. I may put together, build a page on our website that's kind of a central page to where we can update things and have that going and link to that. So I think we'll go from there.
Thank y'all.
Hey, Ken, thank you so much for kind of running point on this and for First Buoy. We appreciate you guys, and we trust that it's going to bear fruit.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing Joe back. Appreciate you doing it.
I like Joe. We'll take him over at our church.
All right. I'm going to stop recording